I'm Connor. I'm the host of feature boot camps on Script Camp, as well as TV and novel writing. Oh, come back. Where'd my background go? There we go. I'm going to be teaching a free promotional class today, how to outline a feature. And this is really important for a lot of reasons, and it's one of the key skills you can learn in just trying to be a professional screenwriter. Because the thing is, and this is one of those, I'll come right out the gate with one of those hard Hollywood truths or whatever, but writing a great script is really, really difficult, but it's actually not enough. You can't just write a great script in Hollywood in order to have a career here. You have to write a lot of great scripts, and you have to sort of continually write them and become, I like to say, a generator of unlimited ideas, or a generator of these great scripts. And more so than that, you have to be able to look at all the building blocks of how they're fitting together and explain your process in great detail, and be able to pick apart other people's ideas and help them even in the sort of early stages along to those more advanced stages of development, which means that you need to know how structure works like the back of your hand. You need to be able to speak in those terms with other professionals, and need to be able to see a story in front of you, diagnose the problems in it, rearrange it, and improve it as much as you can. And often that is going to come down to just working with it in the very early stages of outlines. So if you're not already an outliner, you don't consider yourself someone who likes to plan things in advance, and you want to work as a professional in Hollywood, I recommend you actually really thoroughly learn this skill and be able to communicate in these terms, because so much of what we do is more than just sitting on your own and just writing something in the seclusion of your basement or your attic. It's going to come down to your ability to organize stories and to work with these sort of deliverables that we're giving to our agents or managers most of the time. They're going to be things like 1 sheets, 3 sheets, outlines, treatments, which are all, none of those are actually scripts. Those are just the raw story information presented within just a few pages. So much of what we do is rewriting and revising and polishing and coming on board to other projects that have already had multiple writers on board. So I've rewritten horror thriller scripts that have had 5 writers attached to them at various points. So you need to be able to read every draft of the script so far, keep them all straight in your head, and cobble together the best possible version of all of those different story threads. So there's a lot more to this than just being able to write a great story. In order to have a career and to work in the professional sphere, you have to be able to outline really thoroughly and understand how every part of the story is functioning and why it's there, because then you're not going to be removing any load-bearing columns and cause the whole thing to collapse, because you're going to know what those things are for and why they have been placed that way. So outlining, super important, and we're going to look today at this what I guess would be just these very early stages of conceiving an idea. Once you have the premise, we're going to work to expand it out from its sort of the core appeal of it, like just that one sort of image or that one idea, or that this meets that quality, that it's going to just ground us in a really strong foundational premise, and then expand it from there, placing things on our structure board as we kind of as they occur to us. I'm not going to try to be writing great outlines in this class. I'm going to be demonstrating the process by which you can create your own outlines for features moving forward. Okay, if you need a refresher on the audio stuff, we are conducting this class all in Discord, so I would try to learn just the basics of Discord if you're planning on attending more of these events. The most important thing you should know is that the mute button is in the bottom left corner of the screen. That's that small gray microphone there. And if it turns up as gray, that means that you have set it as muted, and if you take it off, it goes away, and then you can speak out loud. So if you can't be heard while you're speaking, then chances are it's because you left yourself on mute. Sometimes we need to mute somebody for them, which means that you'll see this red icon, but that's only if we ask you to mute your mic several times and somebody doesn't do it or something like that. You get the idea. So watch out for that mute button. You can also right-click on any user and adjust their volume by adjusting the blue bar that comes up when you right-click on their name. Okay, so what is Script Camp? We are a screenwriting community that is focused on taking you from idea to completed draft. And we have lots of free classes and events and workshops like this one today. We also have some classes for supporting members, which are going to be VIP classes, boot camps, and writers' labs, basically anything that's longer than just a single event. This is just a little about me. I've been writing full-length scripts for about 11, 12 years, moved to LA in 2015 and got signed for the first time in 2017. Have been repped several times by several different people since then. I wrote on Shudder's Creepshow in 2019, and I focus primarily on writing horror, thriller, and action films, but I write a pretty wide variety, including dark comedy, sci-fi, musicals, westerns, all kinds of stuff. I teach the boot camps and the weekly lab, which was Saturday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock PST. Skill Camp is our organization. We are a nonprofit with free and low-cost classes to help you learn skills to reach your life goals. So if you like this type of class and instruction and you want to see it applied to different topics like filmmaking, animation, coding, learning languages, or design or novel writing, all these things and more coming soon are going to be added to our Skill Camp family of different servers. So stop by any of those other servers if you feel like you want to attend free classes in any of these topics. We have weekly classes in things like animation with a coding program starting in the new year. You can donate, become a supporting member, and get access to all boot camps and labs from $29 a month with yearly discount. You can volunteer. If you know a skill or language you'd like to teach, you can contact me or Nacho. And you can tell your friends. If you refer somebody, you will both get a free month of unlimited subscription and a free month of Arc Studio Pro, which is a great screenwriting software. So here's what's coming up. So we have the first class in the TV Pilot Bootcamp. Week 1 is going to be this upcoming Friday at 6. And then the holidays are going to put kind of a damper on the boot camps just for those 2 weeks. So we're going to be resuming those. I guess after the Friday class, we'll be adjourning boot camps and resuming them in the new year as of January 6th, which will be it's January 8th, I believe, actually, which is the first of the new feature classes. And so features are going to be Sundays at 11 a.m. and TV is going to be Fridays at 6 p.m. for this upcoming session. And every time those classes conclude, they switch slots. We have script analysis. That's Thursdays at 6. Novel writing classes will be resuming in the new year for the boot camp, but we'll be adding a couple one-off events on WordCamp soon. We have new sessions of painting with light and home studio workshop coming up next week on Film Camp and Creator Camp. These are all free and open to the public if you guys are interested in these topics. Animation classes Tuesdays at 3. It's free on Toon Camp. Beginner Coding Boot Camp January 8th is when that one starts at noon on Sundays. And we're going to start Character Design Boot Camp pretty soon on Toon Camp as well. We have a bunch of events coming up. We have multiple swaps a week. We have Tuesday at 5 and Wednesday at 11. We have Horror Workshop Tuesdays at 6. Fantasy Group is today at 5. And there's going to be a Script Camp Christmas Pitch Fest where you can pitch a Christmas-themed movie idea and win some fun prizes. That'll be December 21st at 6.
Can I ask you a question about Beginner Coding Bootcamp?
Go ahead.
How much of a beginner do you have to be?
It's open to any level.
So if you've never done anything like this,
Yep.
and you have no idea, when?
It's open to at any skill level, even if you've never done any in your life before.
And would they give you ideas of books you could read or websites you could go to, classes you could take, so you could, actually begin to learn this?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not the teacher on that one, so if you have more questions specifically about the content of the course, you can ask Joel. And you can also just join that server for free and use the chat channels there to ask whatever questions you'd like. So Joel will have the actual real answers to these things. But as far as I know, he's told me it's open to people of all skill levels. And yeah, I'm sure he'd be able to help you advance that education in whatever way that would be best useful for you, like additional books to read or projects to take on at home or things like that.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions?
Are you the one running the film camp as well?
I'm the CEO of Script Camp, so I run all these servers, but I don't teach the class. I'm not teaching the lighting classes on Film Camp. No, not currently.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sure. That's Cortland. If you want to ask questions, then you can stop by either Film or Creator Camp. He's on both of those. Okay. So plenty of stuff coming up. I'm really only teaching feature writing, TV writing, novel writing, and I'm going to be teaching Intro to German speaking on the Lingo Camp servers. So this is just a overview of everything we have. We'll have plenty of more things coming up. Here's just a look at some of the promotional events. How to create a TV show, Wednesday, December 14th. That's coming right up at 6 o'clock. That's going to be looking at the broader elements of TV show creation, like the cast, for instance, the designing a cast of characters and trying to figure out what situations we're going to be putting them in week after week, just those kind of essentials of creating and conceiving a TV idea. I mentioned the new TV pilot bootcamp is Friday at 6, and then we'll be resuming in the new year after that week 1, so you'll have a little extra time with that one. Writing the first page, Sunday, December 18th at 11. That one's just going to be looking at a great first page. I mentioned the Pitch Fest. We have a pitching class December 28th at 6, and another one-off TV Writers Room class on the 30th. A couple more coming up in January, which we don't have to announce yet. I've announced 1 billion things, but make sure if you're interested in these upcoming TV or feature boot camps and you want to learn how to write a whole movie or a whole pilot from beginning to end, try out the first class. Free trial is 2 weeks long, so you'd be able to attend. If you sign up in the new year, you could attend 2 of those classes, or you could sign up now and get access to everything we do. We have lots of members are coming to our classes that have done a script before, so it's a nice practice, or nice way to organize your practice and improvement by writing a full script of the boot camp and then write another one afterwards, or perhaps rewrite the previous one. So we've seen a lot of folks really improve that way, and by continuing to come to boot camps, hone their skills and sharpen their skills, so they've gone from never having written a script before to having written a bunch. And that ultimately is our goal. We're not trying to write a masterpiece that's going to sell and get us rich overnight or something like that. We have to always be looking at this as a gym that you go to run laps and improve. You're trying to hone your skills and become someone who is that generator of unlimited story ideas. You're not trying to write just one amazing script. This is a preview of the feature bootcamp schedule. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but you can see it's 8 weeks long, and the first draft is intended to be completed by March 5th. So that is going to be just 4 weeks of planning and plotting out every scene in the movie, and 4 weeks of executing that. So we really emphasize this strong foundation of planning out every single page before you begin, and knowing your story inside and out before you even need to download a screenwriting software. But once you do download one, maybe try out Arc Studio Pro. You can get a free month of it if you refer a friend to Script Camp. So there's just a brief overview. First half of the class is logline, story beats, scene cards, and then second half of the class is you're going to be writing about 20 pages a week, 20 to 25 pages a week. Here's an overview of the pilot bootcamp, which is kind of the same thing, but slightly shorter because pilots are about half the length of movies at their longest. So it's just 6 weeks, and that first pilot will be completed by February 10th. Okay, so if you'd like to join the boot camps, you can go to scriptcamp.net/classes and either get one of the courses on their own, or you can become a supporting member at scriptcamp.net/membership. We have an option for monthly or yearly, and if you get the yearly, you will be saving 40%, which is quite a big discount. If you plan to enroll but haven't signed up on the website yet, Nacho will leave a poll in the chat that you can vote yes in and get immediate access to our bootcamp channels and join our discussion. Here's just a couple of the things that come with membership. I've mentioned most of this already. Essentially, with Unlimited, you just get access to every class, event, and workshop that we do on here. Over 80 or 90 perhaps hours at this point of live classes per month, exclusive chat channels, access to a video library, which includes recordings of all of our classes, not just these free promotional ones that we have out on YouTube. And you'll get discounts on proofreads and consultations. Okay, so I think rather than starting with discussion, I might just jump in and we may just begin with I might just kind of quickly go over the basics of how I would start to break apart an idea, and then I think we may go to a little discussion and the slides, and then come back to doing work. So kind of like when you start a language class and the teacher just reads out a page in that language just to get you the feel for it, I might just start by doing something kind of like that and just outline a basic idea with not too much interaction, but afterwards I will take questions on the process, and then we will go into maybe some activities where we will come up with crazy titles or concepts or things like that and sort of outline those for fun. So this is going to be a loosey-goosey type of class today. We really do have a lot of slides and a lot of things I could get into, but I kind of would prefer to keep this fast and fun. So I will probably just stick with the absolute essentials, and hopefully you'll be able to pick these things up as we go through them. And it's like learning a board game by watching people play it. I find a little bit more handy than reading all the instructions beforehand. So let's just start with, yeah, you know what? Let me just, first of all, check to see if we have any questions or comments in the chat so far. Anything that I've missed? Nacho has left links to contact both instructors of the other camps if you have questions for them. Thank you for that. There's also that poll in the chat. You can click the number 1 if you plan to sign up. Anyone else have questions before I begin? Gamer Bird says, I won't be able to join right now, but are the slides available? Yes, I'll oh, I got to reply to him in text, I think, but I will post the slides for sure.
I wrote in the chat, I don't know if you were able to read it, but yeah, I have a problem with log lines. I'm a novelist and I can't seem to be able to write a log line. It turns out more novel-like, and I'm wondering if maybe through like discussion, if maybe someone could help me really be able to, figure out how to write a log line that's intended for a script versus novel-like.
Sure, yeah, we'll touch on loglines today, because this class is really more about expanding what we have of a premise into a full outline. We won't focus on them as much, but I will go over the basics of loglines for sure. I would say if you want to get better at that, definitely come to or maybe even watch recordings of our previous feature boot camps, which if you go to our YouTube page, you'll find a bunch of just week ones of our previous sessions, which go much deeper into loglines than we will be today. But yeah, I'll look at the essentials of loglines today, and we can kind of look at our template and kind of figure out how we would turn that into a full feature idea. So let's just, I think, yeah, let me grab something really quick, just because this, I will need a pillow to put my arm on over here. 1 second. Got it. Okay. This desk does not have any place for me to rest my arm, so it just like gets worn out so quickly. Okay. So let's get started with this. I think that, so we'll start with, if people do have questions about loglines, I will look at the basics of that. But then we'll go right into, I will just outline something kind of live and do it kind of quick and just make big, bold decisions for it. And then we will go more into the instruction and some more activities. So let's look at what is a logline. So logline, oh wait, I have a slide for this. So the first thing that you come up with when it comes to a movie is, for the most part, it's going to be the premise. So premise before logline. And what we mean by premise is just the essential... Wow, sorry, the light from my window is sort of blocking the screen a little bit. That should change momentarily. Let me just turn this on for now. Okay, so a logline is the one-sentence expression of the idea. So first we have to know what the idea basically is. And the simpler, the better when it comes to feature ideas, especially if you're trying to be writing high-concept, studio-style movies. You need to be able to express the idea in just a couple words or just like a very basic expression. So like if this is going to be a movie about a dragon rider who learns to bond with his creature, or this is going to be a movie about a general who leads his forces to victory against overwhelming odds in a battle. Something like that. It's just like a couple words that sum it up. It's not, you don't even need a logline yet. For instance, we might be looking today at, yeah, I think we might as well. There's an idea of mine that I've had for a while. I don't know if I'm ever going to actually write it, so I thought it might be just good for this class. But it's called Street Performer, and it's about a street performer who ends up having to escape from some bad guys that are after him, and he needs to fight them off with his street performer skills. So just something as very simple as that at the core of it can then be expanded into a logline. So we're really thinking of what's going to be happening in like the middle of the movie. If you can visualize a couple scenes or sequences first, then that's going to be really helpful. So be thinking like, what is the conflict that the character's up against? What is the unique tactic that they're going to use to overcome it? And what is sort of the basic trajectory of that journey? Those are important things to be thinking of first. And then from there, you're going to be expanding that into a full logline. So maybe I'll just kind of write the logline for the Street Performer movie right now. So what do I have for this? The Street Performer is an action comedy, so we're going to write our genre first. And then I'm going to write out the template for logline underneath it. So it is when inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. So we don't always need to follow this exact template, but these are the basic questions that you need to be asking yourself. So what do I have for street performer so far? Well, I know that the inciting incident is going to be, well, he has to, if we're going to have bad guys chasing a street performer around, then he's going to have done something to anger them. So we're going to have, I think the inciting incident is, remember this is, or maybe you have not attended our structure classes before, but inciting incident is the one event, it should not be a sequence of events, that kicks the story off. So in this one, I think the performer over here, I think he's acting as a human statue, which, they hold perfectly still. And so the bad guys who are planning to murder the president, let's just assassinate the president, they discuss their plans right in front of him and without realizing it until they have said too much. And so he basically overhears the plot to kill the president while he's in, let's just say it's in LA. And that's going to set off our chase, right? So when he overhears a terrorist cell's plan to kill the president, that's our inciting incident. Now we're going to say adjective protagonist, and for now I want to write this as sort of a Charlie Chaplin kind of character. So I'm going to say enigmatic for the main character, though I might change that in a little bit as it comes to me. An enigmatic street performer must use his, acrobatic skills to avoid them and escape, essentially. To escape. Or we'll just say survive. Okay, so if, in this case, the stakes being life and death, they're trying to find and kill him. The conflict is he needs to use his acrobatic skills to escape these guys. Okay, so there's the basics there. We don't really have a super strong, clear character journey, and that's what that adjective is all about. So often we're going to be picking an adjective that is highlighting why this character, like why specifically this person in this story, what is something that makes this more personal to them, or some tactic that they will use, or something that they're struggling against. In this case, because he's sort of a Charlie Chaplin type character, we might even be able to emphasize the difficulty of the journey for him if we say that he's mute. Remember how Charlie Chaplin is a silent movie actor, so it would kind of feel like one of those movies if the main character just didn't talk at all. And that also might make his journey more difficult. Obviously, he can't call the police if he is mute, right? So there we go. There's the basics of how I come up with loglines and sort of backfill the information as we, you can write out the basics first, and then think of how do I spice this up and make this more interesting and entertaining. Something else we might add to this might be a central relationship, considering that I think that with this sort of character, we want to typically conceive of them as more iconic characters that don't change as much. So in that case, you have to sort of put the weight of the narrative journey on another character's shoulders. Think in terms of like the Mad Max movies, or what was another example I had? Or the Ferris Bueller's Day Off, in which the sort of main character remains constant throughout and is not really going on a journey as much as the person there with who's going on that journey. I think the movie See How They Run, which just came out recently, was a good example of this as well, where Sam Rockwell's character is pretty much like an iconic detective who the main journey of the story goes to his helper, his assistant, like the Watson type character, right? Okay, this is like an alien voice says, sounds like a Jackie Chan. This is exactly like, I just want to do a Jackie Chan movie, basically. Michelle asks, is the street performer going to stop the plot? I think inadvertently, yes, because by beating up all the bad guys and getting them ultimately arrested, then the plot will be foiled, but he's not like actively attempting to stop the plot. I think he's just trying to survive. Okay, so in terms of loglines, I hope this is clear. So the inciting incident kicks the story off. The adjective clarifies why this person in terms of what makes this more personal to them, or what will make this very difficult for them. What's a unique tactic they use? Conflict is going to be what they're up against. Adversaries. And remembering that the person you're up against is not always somebody you're trying to, kill or fight life and death with. We talked earlier in a promotional class about how in the movie Room, which remember is the, I think 2018 Best Picture nominee about the mother and son who are kidnapped for many years and they end up escaping and trying to rejoin society. The little boy is the protagonist, and the antagonist is actually his mom, because his goal is, I want to stay in my comfort zone, and the mom's like, no, you need to actually learn how to be a person in the world. So an antagonist is not always someone that you're directly fighting with, but it's the person that's standing in the way of the main character's goal, which in that movie was stay in my comfort zone, as it often is with kids. Anything else in this logline description that I've not done? Oh, stakes. Stakes is going to be the consequences of failure. And typically they should be as high as possible for your genre. Meaning, for features are about big stories and big events, and usually the most important events of that character's life, at least thus far. And because they're the most important events of the character's life, then, or at least we conceive of them as being pivotal to that person's life in some way, then it's really helpful to pump up that conflict to the highest extent that it can be, or else it just won't feel as important. And there is sort of what we call like the mumblecore genre, or the slice of life genre, that deliberately does not feature very elevated stakes. But that's such a specific form of storytelling, and it's not really what we are focusing on teaching here. So in 97% of cases, I guess I will say, you want the stakes to be to feel high, because you want this story to feel like it matters, and like bad things will happen if the main character doesn't act. It needs to add like weight. It needs to feel important, at least within the world. Like in a comedy, the worst possible consequences might be the friends have a fight, or in a romance, it might be they break up or something like that, which is not life and death. But you get the idea that they should be as high as possible for that genre. Okay. So any questions about loglines before we proceed further?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
The script that I want to write is a disaster movie, but it's based upon real events. And I've watched a documentary about this, but excuse me, I want to tell the story mostly from the point of view of the people who go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry.
You're good.
I'm wondering, how do I put them as the protagonist who must survive this disaster? I do want to, highlight like maybe a few individuals, not just simply space out the drama equally between everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to give supporting characters, enough to where, it feels like they're necessary to the story. So at first I thought I was going to make the disaster event the main character, but I thought, no, I want the people who are fighting to survive this to be the main characters. Anyway, I'm just wondering how I put them as the protagonist when it's not one person, it's going to be a whole town.
A whole town? Well, we can't tell a whole town's worth of stories in a movie. A movie is only 90 to 120 minutes long. So you're going to have to narrow your focus a lot. So you're going to have to pick, how many stories do you have here? How many stories are you trying to tell? In terms of main characters in a movie, you can't really get much more than 3 to 5 before you start to really, really lose focus. I mean, there are ensemble stories, but usually those ensembles exist in service of one person's story. Think of like Ocean's 11. That's an ensemble story, but the main character is Danny Ocean, right? So even in ensemble stories, we usually do have a focal point by which everything else can revolve around. So do you have like a sort of main character chosen yet, or are you still sifting through the stories that you have to try to find that?
I have to do historical research, to find out who are the main people that I want to write about.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I want to do is talk about, structures that are still surviving and people who lived through this, or their parents lived through this. So, I want to add that like at the beginning or the end, not interspaced in the middle of it, because it's not a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to talk about some of that, but you know, maybe towards the beginning or the end, you know. So, but yeah, I need to figure out who are going to be my main characters. But I did want to also focus on how this is a town, you know, trying to survive this event,
Mhm.
and you know what happens to them. So, could I maybe say, you know, X town, you know, has to cope with this, you know, this event, that this and is that would be the inciting incident, right?
Well,
So this
the inciting
disaster
incident is usually, well, it depends how you want to do it. I mean, it depends on what the disaster is, first of all, because different disasters work in very different ways, right? So
right.
if you're gonna be doing, like, I don't know, a story about a flood, for instance, the inciting incident might be like, oh, somebody feels the first raindrop, right? And then we're like,
Okay.
this is gonna start building up really big, and then
Oh, okay.
over the course of the, like, our break into two might be the uh, the flood fully sweeps into the town or something like that. So, but in terms of writing a logline for it, you're probably going to want to phrase it something as like, you know, when X disaster, when an earthquake, you know, threatens the, or when an earthquake, you know, devastates a small town, then focus in on a person though. So like, make sure it feels like you're telling us a person's story. Like you can kind of imply that you're going to give us the trajectory, or like you're going to give us the slightly broader scope of telling us this is like this community's story. You can do that. You can maybe even phrase it in terms of like, yeah, like when a flood devastates this small main community, and then focus in and say you know, reclusive bookstore owner needs to get out of his flooding basement before he drowns, right? Or something
Okay.
like that, where we, so you can start us off with the larger scope and then narrow it down so that we understand, okay, this is going to be this one person's story that's going to act as our point of focus to tell everyone's stories. Everyone is going to revolve around this.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure, sure. So yeah, maybe do some research and just find the most interesting stories that are, if you really want to do a movie based on the truth and really want to tell true stories, then you're going to have to just do a lot of research and find the most interesting person to start with.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure, sure, sure. Any other questions on what we've talked about so far?
I actually have one.
Mm-hmm.
In my situation, my character is this is more of a they accidentally stumble in on the upon action and then get involved without their originally, like they didn't originally want to. They just happened to end up in a situation that required them to be a part of the action. Like, how would I put that in? Because my character doesn't really have any stakes that I would want to say up front because it would ruin the mystery of the story.
Hmm.
Like, how do I go about that?
Can you just maybe in like a sentence or two just tell me what it's about and maybe I can help more?
So currently, the logline that I have is when overhearing a suspicious phone call from her sugar parent, Teresa Bones, Abigail Jacobs wants to uncover the secrets of her sugar parent before committing to her feelings for the businesswoman. Like
Hmm.
that's what I've got currently, but like that's literally something I just wrote because and it feels a little bit forced because she didn't uncover the secret necessarily because of these feelings. It's more like she heard it and was suspicious and then got confronted about it.
Hmm.
Like she didn't intend for anything to happen.
Okay. So I'm having trouble seeing a few of the basics here. I will also suggest don't include names in loglines because it just makes the reader or makes the listener think, oh wait, I have to pay attention to that, and then we get to the end, we're like, oh wait, no, it was just a name of a character. I don't actually have to. It's just taking attention away from what's important in a logline. So you have to describe the characters in terms of like an adjective noun, right? So instead of a name, you would say like, I don't know, an angsty teenager or a reclusive bookstore owner or something. You see how I mean? You can like frame the character in terms. You have to like tell us who they are rather than just give us a name. Besides that, this logline that I just started over here also begins with a character just stumbling on something. This street performer is just being a human statue, and he hears the terrorists over, you know, talking about their plans to kill the president. But then you need to give us a reason for that character to stay in that story. So, in mine, for instance, now that he heard that, they're trying to kill him, and he can't just unhear it. So they're going to be after him, and the stakes are quite high. It sounds like your main character. Tell me again what she's trying to do.
It's actually quite a similar situation, I suppose. It's the fact that, I mean, she uncovers a very big secret about like the business that Teresa Bones in this case is actually running.
Who's Teresa
So
Bones?
she she's the love interest kind of the protagonist. That's like the
Oh,
two names that I did use are actually really important. Like those are literally the two main characters. So
okay.
that's the only reason I used them as well. So
Okay, but it's the so can you tell me the logline again with just without the name so we just have the relationships a little clearer. So she
okay.
overhears some
Okay.
secrets about the business that she wants to
Well,
get a job at.
well, well, I took out the names.
Okay.
When overhearing a suspicious phone call from her sugar parent, a young art student wants to uncover the secret of her sugar parent before committing to her feelings for the businesswoman.
Who's the businesswoman? The same. We're only talking about two people
The
here.
lady who like it's two people, the businesswoman who is the person who's the sugar parent, and the art student who is the protagonist.
Okay, so in a logline, try not to refer to the same people using different terms, unless it's super clear what you mean. Because there, I just was not even clear on how many characters we're talking about here, and I still don't think I understand what's going on. So you can't really overhear a phone call. What does that even mean? You mean like she overhears half of it, like her friend is talking and she's in the room and just hears the person speaking
She's
out
out.
loud?
She's like she's just in the bathroom in this case, and then with the Teresa Bones walks around with her house with the phone on speaker,
So
and she
they're in the
essentially
same
overhears.
on speaker.
She
Okay.
overhears the same, like the entire conversation,
Uh-huh.
but she wasn't trying to. She was just in the bathroom.
Well, she
So
had it on speaker. That's sort of like
I mean, they live together.
they. Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Wait, they live together. I still don't. I think I understand the basics of what's happening in this movie. So
It's a gay romance. The two are living together. One of them wants to like confess her feelings, but she hears the phone call,
confess
and
her
that makes
feelings
her
to the
suspicious.
person she's living with.
Yes.
What? What do you mean? Why would?
This is.
What do you mean?
She
Like
was.
you live with them already. What feelings do you have to confess?
Do you know the concept of a sugar parent, like a sugar relationship,
I guess I don't as much
where
as I thought I did.
you pay someone to be in your company? That's the whole concept, and the protagonist is being paid essentially to live with that person and be in their company and stuff like that. But she ends up accidentally developing feelings for that person.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
she's a sugar mommy in this case. It's lesbian. It's gay. So yeah.
Right. So I think the term sugar parent in the logline is also just not a term almost anyone has, or I shouldn't say almost anyone.
Yeah.
It's not a term I've heard
It's,
before, so it immediately
yeah,
just makes me
I'm probably gonna change it.
try to
I'll just
figure
change
out.
it to sugar mommy, I suppose. Make it
Well,
more clear that it is a woman.
and also someone who I didn't realize that the deal included paying someone to live with you. I thought it was
Oh,
just like
that's a classic. No, that's what a classic sugar relationship is.
that is okay. I was not aware of that at all. So some. I mean, maybe I'm in the minority on this, and everyone else knows that that's exactly what that means. But I think just the basic terms of what's going on here should be as clear as you can make them. So the story is there's a sugar parent that lives with her. I don't even know what the inverse of that relationship.
Sugar baby.
Sugar child.
It's
Okay,
a sugar baby.
baby.
Sugar baby.
I don't think I've said these words out loud in my life ever. Okay, so the sugar baby lives with the sugar mommy. The baby is, oh my god, the main character is the one being paid, right?
The sugar baby is being paid by the
Right.
sugar parent. Yes.
Okay, and that's the main character.
Yes.
And she's being paid to live with this person and be in a relationship with them, and then
Yes.
starts to develop feelings for them. What's the conflict?
The conflict is the fact that she accidentally overhears this conversation and gets confronted about it. Like, that's the thing.
Gets confronted about what?
I'm like gets confronted about hearing it because it is a sketchy business call. She is indeed correct. It is like a secret reveal whole situation. This is what I said when I was bad at outlining Nacho. This is what I said earlier.
No, that's okay. We're all here for that's what this class is all about.
I
Go ahead.
understand it. I understand what she's saying. So, she has a sugar mama or a sugar daddy or both. And, she doesn't necessarily know she has feelings for them, because if you're paid to live with someone, then it's contractual,
Mhm.
okay? And so you don't necessarily have feelings for the person, and this person is wondering if she's having feelings, but then when she overhears the sketchy conversation, then she calls into question whether or not she actually feels these feelings, because she realizes that this is not the person that I thought that they were.
Okay.
Yes. Except for it's less that if they do have the feelings and more if they should be engaging and committing to these feelings.
Right,
Because she
because it's a
suspects that
sketchy person.
sketchy in the sense
She's
that
just
she is a
okay,
serial
for
killer,
context.
or
No, she owns a mafia.
she owns
She's a
a
mafia.
mafia.
Or better said,
Okay.
she's the leader of a mafia, and that's kind of the thing that is talked about. But like that's also supposed to be a reveal. This is what happens when you write series, I swear. It's
Okay.
like there's two reveals that happen, and that's I can't get around spoiling one of them, I feel.
You have to spoil it. You can't hook some like the purpose of a logline is to get someone to read the script. It's not to we can't be saving all the best stuff, and we can't be saving the stuff that makes the story clear in reserve. So you have to like include that in the logline. So I'm going to suggest something like this. Or when she learns that the sugar, I guess this just the best term to use, that the sugar mama she lives with is a mafia boss. Then you would explain who your main character is, and probably, remember, adjective, protagonist sort of thing. Make it feel like we want to imply what the internal journey of this character might be. It might be if she's like a hopeless romantic, that might make this kind of like the journey of her learning that, you can't always follow your heart, because sometimes your heart leads you dangerous places. Something like that. So, but just pick your adjective protagonist carefully. Must do what? So just questioning something is not a cinematic expression of action. We need to actually, because that's something that's entirely internal. And in that case, you need to sort of like frame it in terms of what we're going to be watching the characters do in the movie.
She has a gun held to her head. It's either now you join or you die.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's what ends up happening. There's not much time for the character to make a decision. She just turns around and suddenly there's a gun pointing at her head.
Oh, okay. So it's less
Can
that.
I answer into this? My dad was in the mob. I mean, really, he was in the mob, and he got out because he actually didn't have the money, but he had the power and the connections to get out. So, it is possible to get out, and go live a normal life. I mean, he also worked for NASA. He was he was an aerospace engineer. He worked with Howard Hughes, and he had been in the mob. And he ran the West Texas mob, and but because he had the power to do so, he was able to get out. So it depends upon how much power you have. If you're the top dog, you can say, I'm out, and you dissolve all of your businesses. And that's what he did. He dissolved all of his businesses, and his illegal business, and he never ratted on anybody. He just kept silent. So yeah, that's how you can actually get out of the mob.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for that. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I suppose in this case an issue is the fact that like Teresa Bones doesn't want to dissolve her mafia, the House of Bones. She just can't let Abigail go to the police now with this vital information that she overheard about like a massive gun and drug shipment. Like, she can't just let her go with that, and that's why that ends up being an issue.
So is this a romance or is this a crime thriller?
Yes.
It's both. Okay. So, so you're saying they remain like so the mafia boss is now keeping our main character captive, or forcing her to join?
Well, she's forcing her to join, and Abigail, the protagonist, does agree.
Oh, she agrees. So wait, what are we doing in this movie?
Feelings. Like, she catches feelings, and after being allowed to think about it for a while, whilst being kept hostage for like the evening, basically, she joins, and then the main conflict in the end, I suppose, is more of a mafia to mafia thing.
Okay, this is a feature, right?
No, this is a series.
Oh, this is so we formulate a series logline totally differently than we formulate a feature logline.
Well, that would probably explain why nothing so far has worked out.
That's okay. I mean, I was
regarding
starting
this formula.
I was starting to see it as a feature, but then when you say that like it evolves that much, then I was starting to think this is exceeding the scope of a feature. So yeah, this is a feature outlining class, so we're going to be focusing on that. But I will say that this. Okay, so yeah, the series logline is going to be like you give us a concept of what the entire series is going to be, and then you have a pilot logline as well that just expresses what happens in that very first episode. So there's two separate loglines that you're in fact going to have to make, and I think that the hook of your show is that the sugar baby finds out that the person she's developing feelings for is a mob boss. And I don't think you should hold that back at all. Like, put that at the very front of explaining this idea, because that is the idea. And then the action that we're watching is she's, I guess, being drawn into this world of crime, right? So I think that your series logline would more explain things in those terms. Like, she falls in with this, this dangerous lover, ends up being a mob boss, and starts to draw your main character into a world of crime. That's going to be like the series trajectory, and then the pilot logline is going to focus more on just what happens in that very first episode, which is probably going to be when she finds out this secret. She learns that her lover is a mob boss and tries to escape, I'm guessing, and then she gets caught and brought back, right? So, but we understand that the visual conflict we're watching in the pilot is the main character is trying to get away from her criminal lover.
Okay.
Okay, I know that's a lot of stuff. I hope that's helpful, but yeah, you'll need two separate loglines.
It's understandable. It's understandable. Okay, so then I suppose for this course, I'll focus on the pilot logline, I guess.
Okay, sure, yeah. So must conflict before or else stakes.
I want to add a suggestion. I think that's a wonderful series. I would definitely love that because I'm really into crime dramas. So just a suggestion. I think that you should make her, you should make them Hispanic, and I think you should name the series whatever the Spanish word is for sugar. I think that's supera or something like that. I don't speak Spanish. I speak German and English, and I'm definitely going to come to your German class.
Great.
Anyway, so that's just a suggestion because I think that would be really great.
He's in London, actually.
London. All right.
It's kind of semi-based on an actual mob boss structure in London.
Very cool.
So it's not going to be Azúcar de España or Zucker aus Deutschland.
So, okay. I hope that's helpful for just this idea so far. We should maybe turn our focus towards features just for the remainder of the class, but I hope that's useful. And if you want to check out our pilot class, we have one coming up on Friday. That's going to be week 1 of that course. So if you really think this is a pilot, then feel free to come by and learn more about just like forming a TV series, and also the promotional classes that we'll have the rest of the month will touch on like just the basic elements of making a show. Thanks for the questions and the logline and discussion. So no problem that it took up time. That's what the class is all about. So let's.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I accidentally kicked myself out, and I was wondering, what did I miss?
I don't think you missed anything.
Good.
We were just wrapping up with the pilot logline.
Okay, and I hope you didn't mind me giving the creative advice. It sounds like a great idea to me.
Yeah, sure.
Her series sounds like a really great idea to me, and well, I happen to love crime dramas, so it sounds great to me. So.
Yeah, thank you for the comments. Okay, so I think we're going to look a little bit at structure first, and then I'm going to outline Street Performer, and then we will do some activities where we will be coming up with titles and genres and just outlining a few movies pretty quickly. We want to learn to sort of get through these without lingering too long or agonizing over every decision. We're just trying to really cement crystallize how the basic mechanics of this work, and show you how each of the pieces can pretty quickly fit into place, and you can fill out a whole structure just by knowing a few of the essentials. So, logline, really important. We won't talk much more about logline today because we want to just get to the stories themselves, but this will give you some like little cheat. It's like a little cheat sheet, right? because by constructing a logline well, you already know where some things are going to be. So we already know what the inciting. If we know what the inciting incident is, then we know what's going to happen between pages maybe 10 and 15. An adjective protagonist is what you're going to be setting up between, in the first act, so like pages 1 to 10, the sort of intro sequence. The conflict is going to tell us what we're doing in the second act. So let me move out of the way so you can read all this behind me. The second act is the movie. It is the movie. It's the heart of the movie. And unless your idea includes 3 to 5-ish sequences, or it feels like it can contain 3 to 5 sequences that relate to your core premise directly in the middle of the movie, so that's going to be minute like 25 to 55, then you don't have a super solid feature idea yet. So the conflict is going to revolve around the protagonist's goal and obstacles. So they have a larger objective in the distance, and they have obstacles that are going to stand in the way of achieving that goal. We should have a sense of what will happen if they don't achieve that goal. That's the stakes. And the ticking clock might be a device that you use to add a sense of urgency to that situation. So if we have to clean up the big party before mom and dad get home, then that's a ticking clock for that sequence, or it might be a ticking clock for... We could do a whole movie on that, couldn't we? Like, the kids have to clean up the biggest party ever before the parents get home. Could be a whole movie. And then, since we know what the stakes are, we know what's going to happen towards the end of the movie, around that working up to that Act 3 break. We're going to fall into what we call the all is lost moment, which is essentially the worst circumstances your protagonist could fall into. That's usually going to be they fail at their goal, or they seem as if they are on the verge of failing at their goal. And all of this is to say that a very well-written logline will just yield the 4 or 5 most important linchpin moments on your plot sheet, your plot board, your outline, whatever it is that you're using. And so this is why we come up with a logline first. So any questions on how to write a logline or anything about loglines that I've discussed here? We don't have time to do a full workshop on everyone's loglines at the moment, but does anyone have any questions on the process or mechanics of coming up with these? Okay, let's outline Street Performer. And by let's, I mean I'm going to quickly outline Street Performer, and you're going to watch, and you can feel free to ask questions or leave suggestions in the text, but please use the text for it at the moment, because I just want to get through this one pretty quickly so we can move on to the interactive portion of the class where you'll help me come up with a bunch of wacky titles. Okay, so I'm going to just outline the basics of the movie. I'm not going to come up with every single scene, but I'm going to just give us some of the essentials. And I'm not going to do the whole summary of every structural beat first. I'm going to sort of do you're going to learn the board game by watching someone play the board game thing that I mentioned. And then afterwards, I can take questions on any of these sections or perhaps explain more. Okay, let's get started here. So what's the movie structure look like? We have intro, catalyst, which is also called inciting incident interchangeably. Inciting incident. Then we have your trying the locks, as we call it here. And then we break into 2. That's when we say break, that means act break. And when we say a number like that, that means just the second act. That's going to take us into premise scenes. We hit the midpoint at the direct center of the story. That leads us into escalation. That's ramping up to all is lost. We then droop down into the pit of despair until we swing up with the act 3, the break into 3. And then we have the finale. And what you might call epilogue. Am I going to spell denouement right ever correctly in my entire life? No, I'm not. Not even once. O-U-E. I'm never going to get O-U-E. Okay, so that's what a movie looks like, essentially. And we're going to put page numbers next to it now because we are going to use those as benchmarks and estimates. And we are also going to be able to keep this elastic for writing movies of different lengths. Most of the time in what I'm writing, which is action, horror, and thriller films, 90 pages is about what I'm going for, and I usually overshoot it a little bit and end up with 92 to 95. So I'm just going to write out the numbers in accordance with that. So we have intro 1 to 10. Your catalyst is going to be 12. Trying locks is 12 to 25. Break into 2 is going to be on page 25. Premise scenes 25 to 45. It's all very nicely mathematical when you do it like this, at least I think. Escalation will be 45 to 60. All is lost, page 60. Some of these are just a single moment, whereas some of these are going to be a sequence that will comprise several moments, and you can tell the difference between some of them are just one single number and some of them are a span of pages. Everything that's just one number on its own means that should just be sort of one moment. So 60 to 70 will be Pit of Despair. We're going to break into 3 on 70. Our finale is going to be 70 to 85, and epilogue/denouement will be 85 to 90. But since we're doing an action movie, I'm going to give us an even shorter one, and just give us 2 pages for that. There we go. In the 90s style action movies, you just end right after the climax, and that was always sort of fun. I always like where it's just like we crane up and away from the carnage or the car wreck at the end of the movie, and we just sort of fade to black and credits just roll. It's always sort of a fun way to end a kind of an over-the-top horror, thriller, or action film. Okay, so each of these moments might sort of be self-explanatory, or some of them might require a little more explanation, but I'm just going to write out the outline first and then take questions on it and go into more depth on it afterwards. Let's get started. Okay, so what do we have so far? Not the sugar mama thing. We're doing the... Here we go. When he overhears the terrorist cell's plan to kill the president, a mute street performer must use his acrobatic skills to evade them and escape LA. So he's being chased by... It's like Home Alone almost, isn't it? It's like there's like... Let's say there's 6 bad guys that are after him. He's a street performer, needs to escape from LA in order to not get killed by them, right? Very simple self-preservation kind of plot line. And I'm thinking maybe we could use a central relationship to spice this up and also add that sense of character arc. Because this, like I mentioned, we are thinking a sort of more iconic character for this one that doesn't really change as much, and he doesn't even speak. So we're going to have to put the arc on somebody else's shoulders. So I'm going to say, when he overhears a terrorist cell's plan to kill the president, a mute street performer and his neurotic busker friend. That's the word, right? Busker is the person who plays music on the side of the road. Yeah. And his neurotic busker best friend must use acrobatic skills. Let's just say use their street performance skills. Oh, did I say street performer twice? Must use their performance skills to evade them and escape LA. Something like that. So there we have a central relationship, and we've added a little bit of investment because now it's not just a journey of this main character trying to save their own life, but it is a buddy team-up sort of story. And it'd be fun if throughout this premise as well, we're taking full advantage of the idea of the world that we're in, which is the world of street performance. So we're going to meet several characters who represent the spectrum of all the different kinds of street performers you find in Los Angeles and in big cities all around the world. Okay, so let's see what we have so far. We have when inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. Easiest thing to do first is the inciting incident. So we're going to put that right here. When he overhears a terrorist cell's plan to kill the president. That's going to happen on page 12. We then have an adjective protagonist, a mute street performer. So we're going to want to get a sense of that in the intro sequence. So we're going to want to learn what his sort of day-to-day life is kind of like. And we have not way too long to do it. We have maybe like 4 or 5 scenes here, assuming they're about 2 pages long each. So that just helps you visualize it just by putting these little bullet points on there. You can see, okay, that's how much room I really have. And during the sequence, we're going to want to meet our main character and learn what his life is like. So I think that we'd like to have an intro that sort of showcases what his skill set is and also showcases who he is as a person. So let's just say, and let's just call him Performer for now. Let's not even give him a name, right? So Performer lives, let's say he is he's like, he floats from housing situation to housing situation. He doesn't live anywhere permanently. So currently he's living under a bridge. A stray cat is in trouble, so he stacks up he balances a bunch of old rotting furniture on each other to rescue the cat. We're literally saving the cat, if you know that book, the screenwriting book, Save the Cat. And maybe it's raining outside, so he ends up just like stacked up on a bunch of stuff. The cat won't come with him, so he just stays up there holding an umbrella over the cat. He holds an umbrella over it to keep it safe. So that way we can sort of like learn the world the main character is in, his living situation, and also just what his kind of personality is like, right? He's like somebody that we could easily root for. So that's where we're going to start here, and throughout the rest of the intro sequence we're going to be learning about his day-to-day life and conflicts. I think primarily it's going to be nobody gives him any money. Because people nowadays, are less likely to give money to street performers, I would say. It's a bad economy, and also just people don't, they'll drop a couple dollars in, but it's not a great way to make a living. So we're going to be learning he has various challenges that he faces in his day-to-day life. Maybe he gets mugged or something. We're just learning how his what his situation is like. Then when he's and we're also going to want to introduce that central relationship here, so we're going to say like hang out / meet with busker friend, and let's make sure that they feel like they have a kind of, we want to make sure they feel like they really are best friends. They probably hang out and perform together, and the friend wants to go professional and be a legit musician. So I think that we're going to balance the majority of the character's arc on the back of the friend who needs to be the one to sort of change. And if we're going to just pick an arc for him right off the bat, which I am because we're getting through this quickly, I'm going to say this is going to be the journey of him realizing playing for the love of the craft is the important part. He needs to sort of come to understand that, and that he's never really going to go pro. So I think during the end of the movie, he's going to have to, I'm going to put our break into 3. Friend gives up his prospects of a career to save performer. And then I think at the very end, we probably want to have they escape to a remote, beautiful vacation destination together, where they continue performing on the streets. The musician has now accepted that he's a busker. And I think we get the basics of that. So this is one of those Ferris Bueller type stories where the secondary character is the one that has the primary journey, so they're going to learn from the main character, and the main character is not really going to change. So I am outlining a little bit of a non-traditional story here, but as we keep that in mind, that's going to help us pick the main events for the rest of the story, because we're using them to advance the secondary characters, or the secondary protagonist's arc. So I'm just going to go pretty quickly through the rest of this, so using just the essentials that we have. So we know what our premise scenes are going to be, because it's we want to showcase all the crazy stunts that a street performer can do, and we're going to want to use them to get away and fight bad guys, right? So let's have a scene at a construction site, all the Jackie Chan stuff, right? We're going to want to have, how about a unicycle chase? I'm just coming up with stuff off the top of my head. So we have construction site, unicycle chase. Who are some other people they might run into on the street? A bunch of Spider-Man performers, right, on Hollywood Boulevard / costumed performers. Maybe we could have a scene where he needs to blend in with one of those groups, and they need to be able to tell which one is... They try to unmask all the Spider-Men to catch him. So I'm just picking the stuff that would be in the trailer, right? Like the stuff that you would see on the poster or in the trailer, and I'm just filling out this section. Maybe a juggling scene would be cool. Maybe maybe we'll put the juggling first. So... Or that actually would probably just go in one of these other action sequences. But as an action movie, we're picking action sequences to put into the premise scenes first, and then to layer into the most important moments of the movie, because action stories are usually going to have action scenes be at all these pivotal, most key moments. Okay, so he blends in with the costume performers. We have the construction site. We have the unicycle chase. Maybe... since we're doing a buddy story, I think we already know what our all is lost is going to be. The buddies have a fight and go their separate ways. The pit of despair is going to be they have to kind of adjust to the world without the person they've lost. So we now wallow in the shame and failure of the partnership's breakup. So let's pick some other just easy things to fill this out. So catalyst is he overhears their plan to kill the president. The triangle lock sequence is they give chase. And the question we're sort of asking in this sequence, because triangle locks often should have a kind of question attached to it, is A, what should he do? And can he possibly get away from these people? So he's going to approach, obviously, we need to just get away from them, first of all. And these should be action sequences as well. So they're going to give chase. Let's put the unicycle chase up here, actually. Triangle locks is not a sequence that should be neglected, because it feels like it should be the character deciding whether or not they want to go on the journey of the movie. In fact, this is where the movie really should kick into gear. So let's start with the unicycle chase. They throw knives at him, and he ends up juggling them. So he's doing all that. We would want to make a list of everything street performers do, and then recontextualize all of those things as action scenes. Maybe a scene with a dance crew. You know how they have on Hollywood Boulevard? Sometimes they'll just do a pretty elaborate acrobatic dance performance. Dance crew fight scene could be cool. So they give chase. He asks his friend for help. The busker tells him to go to the cops. He tries to tell a cop he tries to ask a cop for help, but can only do so through mime, so the cop just thinks that he's messing with him. Yeah, so he can't go to the cops because he just can't communicate what the problem is, and I think they would the bad guys show up at the last second anyway, so he can't just, like, hide behind the cop. So we're trying the locks, and I think that the last moment here, remember, our central buddy partnership is going to have to carry us through the movie, so we're going to put, at the end of this, is this essentially like, are you in? He asks the busker to help him flee, and the busker agrees. Obviously, he's going to have seen the danger of this, but he's going to agree anyway to help him flee. Okay. So our break into 2 is now going to be they resolve they have to leave the city. All right, so that's going to lead us to our premise scenes, which are going to be a bunch of crazy fights and chases as they go from one place in LA to the next. And let's maybe give them a really clear objective, right? So they're trying to get to LAX, maybe. Let's just say that for now. It's nice to have really clear, tangible goalposts on your story. So we have a bunch of action sort of set pieces in the middle. Let me just add like 1 or 2 more. What else would a street performer do? I've seen them sometimes. We did the giant stack of stuff. We did the unicycle. We did the juggling. Oh, magic tricks. He might do magic tricks. So maybe he goes through a costume store. A costume/magic store, and uses all the gimmicky magic stuff inside to throw off the bad guys.
Change.
Ooh, quick change.
You should try quick change, yeah.
That could be cool. Maybe he puts on a bunch of different masks and blends in with the mannequins at the costume store. Okay, so we have an idea of just the fun of this premise, right? Because we started with something as simple as street performer fights dudes. And that's usually what you're aiming for when it comes to a high concept, especially when what I'm talking about, which is horror, action, and thriller movies. We want something that is as easy to express as, hey, you want to see a movie about a street performer that fights a bunch of bad guys? And then we expand that into a real character arc and like a bunch of set pieces that logically lead from one to the next. And it escalates all throughout the story, and it'll just come to feel really satisfying, but you still have that foundational basis of, oh, it's about a street performer that fights dudes. So the midpoint is going to be a large escalation in stakes, so let's say they reach the airport. But there's so much traffic that, well, actually, if they're on foot, then it wouldn't necessarily stop them. So let's say there's the bad guy's calling a bomb threat, so LAX gets shut down. They can't get in, no one can get out. So escalation is now going to be, we have to look at the whatever the main character cares about, which in this case we have his best friend, right? So his friend starts having doubts. The busker starts having doubts, and the performer must convince him to stay and help him escape. I mean, he didn't overhear anything, but he's drawn into this carnage now. There's no getting out. Let's add some more escalation. So we're going to be hitting the main character where it really hurts, and we're going to say the bad guys bring in a hitman, let's say they're a bunch of foreign nationals that are trying to, or like a foreign separatist group that's trying to assassinate the president. Well, they bring in like their LA hitman. So they bring in a notorious hitman to deal with the performer. Let's just say he's injured. He gets injured. The hitman shoots him in the leg, and he can't run fast anymore. He's bleeding, trying to sneak into the airport and escape. And then our all is lost is going to be their big fight. They go their separate ways. The pit of despair is now going to seem like we can't possibly succeed without each other. And that's going to be a couple. Remember, we always want to be framing these in terms of conflict. So if you were really outlining this, you'd come up with a lot more specifics than I am doing now. But we're going to see the characters both realize that they need each other. And then our break into 3 is going to be they reunite. And I like the idea of the friend giving up his prospects of a career. So maybe he does something blatantly illegal and gets, in front of a bunch of witnesses, even though he knows that being a notorious criminal will ruin his chances of being a famous performer, something like that. So he swoops in and saves the performer. This really only works because, remember, that we're giving this character arc to this second character, so it doesn't feel like Deus Ex Machina. It feels like an evolution of his character arc, much like in Ferris Bueller. So, in our finale is just going to be, well, we want to have the best fight scenes there, so fight scene at the airport. Let's do one. We can do, how about the baggage, they do this in Die Hard too, don't they? But let's do the baggage room fight scene. So we have all the conveyor belts. Oh, Jackie Chan fight scenes with conveyor belts? Yes, please. What else could we do? Oh, how about those long, what are they called? People movers? That's also a sort of conveyor belt, isn't it? Could do some really crazy Jackie Chan stuff with conveyor belts. And then what else do we have? We have restaurants, stores, bars. We're just using it, taking advantage of the environment that we're in to fight the bad guys here. So let's put this in an emptied out LAX where it's surrounded by cops. They think that, they have the terrorists surrounded inside, and they're all just trying to... At this point, I think it's personal. The leader of the bad guys is coming for the street performer out of principle. So we take advantage of all the environmental fun at the airport. We're going to have now that they've teamed up, the busker, let's say, I don't know, he goes into a music store. Do they have music stores at airports? Something like that. He goes into an electronics store and hooks up his guitar to a bunch of giant amps and uses it to blast the bad guy away. Something like that. And maybe shatters all the glass with a big solo. And, yeah, maybe that, in order to defeat the bad guys, will disable them with a massive blast of sound that will deafen them, and then the cops can come in and get them after. Okay, cops arrest this is like the Home Alone Scooby-Doo ending, isn't it? Cops arrest the bad guys, and then I think our main characters will have caused so much destruction during their escape that they have to flee the country, so we're going to have them flee to a remote, destination vacation, or vacation place, nice beach somewhere where they're performing together just like they love once again, and our busker has sort of realized that he doesn't need to be famous in order to be happy and fulfilled. He just needs his friend, and he needs the music. Okay, so that's just a really quick, how long was that, 15 minutes or 20 minutes? That's like the crash course in how we outline very quickly, and just are kind of aiming to use like deduction to pick the most logical choices. And we're a lot of the time, if you have a strong enough premise, these sequences will sort of just suggest themselves. So I don't even need to know what exactly we'll be doing in the premise scenes at this point, because I have a bunch of ideas for things that could fit in there. And because I know what each of these structural sections is for, then we can swap something else out there without breaking the whole thing. Okay, so now that I've done this, I can take questions on just this process, and then if you guys want, I can go more into any of these structural moments or these structural beats that you have questions about. So let me just open the floor to questions based on anything that I've done here.
Yes, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my movie, since it's a disaster movie, I do want it to have some action, but I want a lot of that action to be the natural disaster, and it is a flood movie. It's actually about a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
That, and so but it hits at in like the 1910s.
Okay.
And so it is historical drama, and it's disaster, and I want a lot of that action to be the actual hurricane, the flood, how it's destroying the town, how it's killing some people, threatening others. Of course, the protagonists have to live. But anyway, and that's what I want the action to be, mostly the scene, the hurricane itself, and how it's destroying the town and killing and threatening other people. But I do want lots of that action to be probably CGI about, this hurricane out in the Gulf, and because this takes place on the Gulf Coast where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want a lot of that, and but then of course, and that would be like building scenes and how it's getting really, how the eye is getting close, etc., and that kind of stuff. But and of course lots of the action of people interacting with it. And I'm wondering, can I do that? Because I saw that in Twister. That was a great movie. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And in like in one of my favorite disaster movies, the Towering Inferno, how people got hurt, and though they didn't show the fire too much itself, but I I did want to give some idea of like how the enormity of this hurricane and how disastrous it was. And I felt like, okay, that will be really good action, but how do I write that? How do I write this hurricane? And it had a name, and how do I write this? And and show like, well, this hurricane is really gaining speed in the Gulf and coming towards the shore, and things like that. I don't know how to show that without just saying that.
Sorry, wait, what's the question? How do you how would you write the progress of a storm?
Yeah, how would I, like in my mind, what I see is like a bird's eye view of this hurricane, um, um, that's forming out in the ocean, and or it's already formed. It's getting bigger and bigger, and it's just like they show on TV, about how hurricanes spin around and get big and big and big.
Mm-hmm.
How do I write that?
How do you write that?
Without just saying, yeah, hurricane so and so is, getting larger and larger as it's coming to shore.
Have you read a script before?
No, I never have.
No. Okay.
I'm a novelist.
Uh-huh. Okay, so your first goal is to read a bunch of scripts. And that's going to answer a ton of questions, and maybe even questions you didn't even know you had. We have a link that Nacho just left in the chat, thank you for that, which has over 1,000 scripts from what are called the blacklists. And these are like the sort of top unproduced scripts every year. Some of them end up getting made, a lot of them end up getting made into movies, a lot of them don't. I would just go through it and just maybe pick, I'm sure there's even some stories that revolve around storms or involve them, if you really just want to see on the page what sequences like that might look like. But I think just reading scripts, you said you're a novelist, so you have read books that portray these things in various ways, but screenplays are all going to be written in a very sort of standardized format and tense and style. They're all in active, present tense cinematic form. So I think you just need to read like 5 scripts and take notes on everything that you notice in them, and that will really clear a lot of this up for you, just like the basic mechanics of what that would look like on the page.
Well, I actually thought about writing a novel about this first, and then writing the script. But I thought, well, I really want it to be made into a movie because, it's such a great story. And I thought maybe I'll just write a script for it instead. But yeah, that's why I'm here, because I don't know how to write a script. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Okay, well, this is the right place to be. I will say writing a successful book first will make it much more likely to be made into a movie than a historical spec script. Especially right now, the market for historicals is like almost completely dead. Believe me. So I would suggest, if you are really into the story, maybe do write the book first and use that to sort of like do all the research you need and find the story, and then write a script afterwards, because then you're going to be able to just condense that, or like you're gonna have to zero in and narrow it down even more for a script, because you have so few pages compared to a book. So I would probably recommend doing the book first.
Okay.
But yeah, especially if this really matters to you and this is like important to you, because like most of the time when we're writing specs, your first couple specs are not going to be anywhere near good enough to even get like it's challenging to get someone to even read it all the way through, let alone the many steps that it would require to become an actual movie. So the best chances that would have becoming a movie would probably be if it were based on some sort of source material first.
And I agree, and I would do that for a novel too. I know the historical society that has the information about this, and that's the first place I'm going to go to get all my research is to go to the historical society and tell, and then gather my information. And after I'm ready to write, then let them know that, hey, I'm writing this, and if you want any input, etc. So,
Yeah.
but thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, that sounds like a great place to start. And yeah, definitely anyone who has a lot of questions about screenwriting but has not read scripts before, the first thing to do is just pick like 3 to 5 and just read them. I recommend reading at least one a week, ideally more like 3 of them a week. So plenty to choose from in the chat there. And you can make sure to open the folder and look for the guide document. It's usually labeled, they're labeled with numbers, and the guide document usually starts with a 0 or an underscore, or sometimes with a 1, but it'll be like the really, really lowest number that they have, and that will contain a directory of all the scripts in that year's folder. So you definitely want to be able to read the log lines and choose them based on that. Okay, let's go back to what I was just talking about, though. So we're talking outlining for features. Does anyone have any questions or comments based on this process, or they want to know more about any of these specific sections in the script, or any questions on how I was filling in the different sequences within the feature format?
How many points should there be approximately in each of these things? Like for intro, you've got 5, I think it says. Mm-hmm. Optional ones, like should it always be like up to 5, or can you go up to like 7 or 8 or something?
Well, these are not. It's not really strict. There's not really a requirement or a rule for what like the number of scenes. When you expand your story, when you expand the story beats into scene cards, when you do that, you'll be, at least in the process that I use and that I teach here on Script Camp, you'll be designating the pages that they will be taking place on. So, for instance, we might say this first sequence is going to be 1 to 2. This next sequence will be pages 3 to 5. And then maybe this next sequence will just be a single page. And then we have room for 3 more. So you don't have to choose a number of scenes. You're deciding based on the pages. And so, like, the more you do this, the more you will get better at determining how many pages each scene needs. And, like, what kind of scene, or what is this a scene that would be a 3-page scene, or is this more of a 1-page scene? That's something, like a skill that you will gain the more that you do this. And the more that you read. So definitely read a lot of scripts and take notes, like how long was that moment? How long did that take to do? But there's not like a strict requirement or number of, or like a guideline for a number of scenes.
Thanks.
Sure.
And also, actually, I have one more thing.
Go ahead.
A scene, if I have a cut to a different angle or a different shot or something, that does not count as a scene, right? That is something that's just confused me even now as I'm reading scripts, and I've been reading scripts for a hot second now. Mm-hmm. Like for maybe a week or something, I've just been binge reading scripts, and I still can't tell. It's like, do I need to write cut 2 if I have, for example, a shot of one character and another, or is it?
No. You never need to do that. You never need to use the transition elements like cut to, fade to, these things like that. You can use them if you really think that there's a moment where we would really, it would have a strong effect. Like you might, fade from one scene to another if a lot of time passes or somebody falls asleep or if they get poisoned or something. Like we can use these effects like fade or like these transitions or things like that. But don't worry too much about those. I think that the best way that we have to define what a scene is, it's not based on the scene headings, which are the slug lines like interior, house, day. That's it is called a scene heading, but it doesn't necessarily strictly delineate where one scene begins or another one ends. A scene is going to be usually comprised of a main character the character has a goal. They take steps to achieve that goal. They succeed or they fail, and then they move to their next sort of goal. So that's how we're usually going to break down scenes. And in a feature that's going to, for the most part, be between 1 and 4 pages long. So 1-page scene is going to be really quick. Most scenes are going to be 2 or 3 pages long. And then you have maybe a couple 4+ scenes, but maybe only like 1 or 2 of them in the whole movie.
Okay.
So most scenes, 2 to 3 pages. A character wants something. They take steps to achieve it. They succeed or they fail. And it moves them further from or closer to their ultimate goal. in our classes here, we go way deeper into these, just like specific elements of scene work. But a scene does not change when a camera angle changes or when a location changes. A scene really concludes when that character has definitively succeeded or failed at a goal, even if it's a small goal in service of a much larger one. So, like, if it's a short film about a guy trying to make a sandwich, he might have a scene where he goes to the grocery store. He goes to several different aisles. That's not a different scene just because he goes to different aisles. He's gathering the ingredients, right? And then maybe it turns out they're out of jelly, so now he has to find some substance. He has to make his own jelly out of strawberries from the, produce aisle. But that's still all one scene because the goal is the same. Gather the ingredients for the sandwich. So look at it mostly based on character goal and achievement of that goal. And you want to be setting goalposts in such a way that we understand, okay, that's definitively done by the end of this 2 to 3 page section. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. It
Sure.
definitely does. It definitely does.
Okay, shall we go to, let's just go to our activity. I would like to just see a bunch of titles in the chat and put a genre next to each one. But don't think about this too much. Just in the chat right now, just list out a bunch of titles and send them to me. So the way you do this is not by thinking, so you'll just write, like, Cheap Grills. That's a movie? Okay, let's make it comedy. So let's do one called Bring on the Beats. Bring on the Beats? Okay, that's a musical. How about one called Ripe Tomato Paste? And that one's going to be a drama. How about one called Giving Dad the Juice? That one sounds like a sports movie. Okay, you get the idea. So just write out a bunch of titles. We've got some in the chat already. Just fire away. Make sure to include the genre attached to it, and don't think too much, just write. I'll give you guys a minute to do this. Silly Fingers, horror. I actually love that one. A Bad Song, dark fantasy, from Carmen. Thanks, Carmen. Bad Christmas. Staked, direct effect. Bad humor, Spanksgiving. God, there's not a lot of Thanksgiving movies, huh? And I think I remember hearing a discussion as to why. It's because Thanksgiving doesn't really have the sort of codified nature as some holidays do. Like, there's a lot of Christmas movies because Christmas has, like, a sort of set structure to it that most families follow, at least in America, whereas Thanksgiving is kind of just a meal and everything else is, like, very dependent on the individual family. So finding Thanksgiving stories is just a little harder. And also, I think the themes aren't quite as universal. I mean, the theme of giving thanks for things you're used to, or thanks for things that you are thankful for, is pretty universal, but something about it doesn't quite cross cultures as well as Christmas does, because possibly the religious links that make Christmas more accessible. Anyway, I'm just talking about Thanksgiving movies now. We have a bunch more stuff in the chat. Thank you for this.
What about planes, trains, and automobiles?
Yeah, that's one of the few the few Thanksgiving movies that I think people know and that has really stood the test of time. All right, we got a bunch more titles. Thank you for this. The Putrid Few, Saving Satan, Ironclad Ivory, The Heretic. There's no genres on these, but most of them do sound like fantasy. Rapid Fire, a military drama. Dad Burnt the Turkey, Sickle Cell, Tough Cookies. That actually sounds like a very doable action comedy. Love is Free, Doggy Bag, Man Cave. That Nacho's just coming up with stuff that sounds like kind of like 2005 era high concept comedies, but they do sound like actual comedies for sure. The Good and Bad of Training Life. Training Life, okay. The Marshall Mathers movie, a biopic. Well, okay, I don't even know who that is, so that would just be, you might have said any name in there. Dad Ruined Christmas.
Eminem.
Go ahead.
It's Eminem.
Marshall Matthews
It's
is
Eminem.
Eminem.
Okay. Time of Our Knives, Sputtering, Gobble, Pencil Me In. He Smells Too Much Like Hamburger. Carmen's getting good at this. Strongman. Okay, so let's focus on features for now. And I'm going to just pick a random one from the list. I really like Man Cave. That one. Is there no spec called Man Cave? There's gotta be. But let's go with Man Cave, the comedy, for now. Okay. Let's see. So, how do I want to do this? First, I'm going to ask you guys, what is a man cave to you? When you think of a man cave, what is that? And what does that include? And what would you find in there? And why does that exist? Feel free to speak up in the text chat. Go ahead.
Like a big TV,
Okay.
beer on tap, some kind of sports themed stuff.
Sports memorabilia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What
Lego
else?
Star Wars sets.
Lego Star
There
Wars.
has to be at least one fighter pilot
Yeah.
or something like that.
Toys, then. Toy stuff. So this is...
Like
Lightsabers, yeah.
Go ahead.
Like the stuff the guy wanted when he was a kid, but he could never get.
Stuff he wanted when he was a kid. This is good. Yeah, so a man cave is sort of a place where you go to revert into this more either primal or like childlike state. It seems like one or the other, right? We're either going to the man cave so you can drink beer with your buddies and watch football, or so that you can play with toys and video games, I guess, by yourself, right? Is that what you are conceiving of a man cave as?
Yeah.
Well, my boyfriend has a man cave. He's a political science professor, so his man cave is both sports and politics. And yes, it does involve liquor.
Okay.
And no girls allowed. Although, well, I take it back. I come in for the political part because I'm also a political science by education. So, and we're starting a political science show, but the sports, no girls allowed.
No girls allowed. Yeah, that does seem to usually be part of man cave lore, doesn't it? Where it's a place
But
for the dudes.
But I have a dollhouse, and it's no boys allowed. So.
Okay. Fair enough. That'll be the sequel.
There's usually this like one thing that seems like it shouldn't fit, so maybe something like a picture of a dog or like a little heart pillow or something like that, something really cliche kitschy thing that like they don't really want anyone to see.
Oh, stuff they don't want anyone to see. So the privacy is an important part of the man. That's why it's a cave, right? Stuff he doesn't want anyone to see. Or maybe we could say things like hobbies that he's a little bit more hesitant to share with the rest of the world. It's a place where a guy can just sort of be himself. A guy can unashamedly be himself. I think that's the idea of what a man cave is. Okay, so now we're going to be thinking of... we need a protagonist for this. And so the things that are coming to my mind are we have a character that really needs this place to sort of be himself. He really needs a main character that is going to perhaps be building a man cave throughout the movie, or maybe we could do a character. I'm just going to list out a couple of possibilities. We could do one character that really needs a man cave and perhaps gets a bunch of friends together to make the ultimate one. That then ends up becoming maybe like all of them start to hang out more and more in their one friend's man cave because they pool their resources. I like that. I like the idea of a bunch of friends who pool their resources to make the ultimate man cave. Ooh, I'm gravitating towards thriller, but it should not be a thriller. We're doing comedy. Okay, so a bunch of friends pool their resources because none of them can afford the ultimate man cave on their own, right? To make the ultimate man cave, and I think the danger with the man cave or the conflict is they end up spending too much time there, right?
Or too much money.
Yeah, or too much money on it, okay. And then I think we're trying to zero in on the conflict of the movie now. I think it would be they're not spending enough time with their families. And let's maybe pick let's pick 3 dudes for this. This sounds like a Seth Rogen kind of movie, doesn't it? So let's just say we're going to do your Seth Rogen, we're going to do your Jonah Hill, and I don't know, like Craig Robinson or somebody like that. So those are our sort of main 3. We're going to zero in on a protagonist in just a moment, but first we have to just think of what is kind of the basic appeal of the movie, right? So we have to think of what's going to be in those premise scenes. So I'm trying to think of what premise scenes could be here. Obviously, we want to see them building the man cave and then trying the lock sequence. So assembling all the coolest stuff, and maybe it starts to gain popularity in the neighborhood, so other guys start wanting to come over to the man cave too. And then maybe the issue becomes other guys take over the man cave and they need to get it back. Okay, I think we found it. I don't really like we like to have a little bit of conflict of their wives or kids are like, you guys need to stop spending so much time there, but that's not really going to carry a whole movie. But if we make this a little bit more like something like, did you guys see Neighbors with, that also was Seth Rogen and Zac Efron? I think that's the kind of vibe we're going with here. A hostile group of dudes takes over the ultimate man cave, and then our main characters need to get them out so they can reclaim their space just to be themselves. And maybe when the bad guys take it over, they fill the man cave with all this sort of like worst possible stuff. They fill it with like, you know, a bunch of misogynistic posters, and like they spill beer all over the floor, and they come in and they ruin the man cave like a bunch of frat boys would, basically. So I like that. Let's in that case think of who would be our main character in this setup, and we're going to want somebody who, I think then in this case, if we're doing this version of the story, somebody who's very we want to pick somebody whose role in the story is going to be particularly difficult. So maybe a very sort of conflict-averse main character would be nice, because then he's going to be forced to kind of grow a backbone to deal with these invading man cave dudes, right? Maybe they ruined their own man cave. Now they're on the hunt for the next one. They're like a tribe of man cave ruining Neanderthals. Okay, so I think we have the basics of the story here. Whose idea was this? Was this Nacho? Nacho.
Yes.
It is. So for what can you see? What would be some, if we had to just pick like 3 sequences from the middle of this version of the movie? I mentioned, so our main conflict is we're trying to get rid of the dudes who have taken over the man cave, right? Can you just list me like 3 scenes or 3 things you can think of that would be kind of funny here?
Like maybe they're taken over by women.
What? Well, so let's not change the premise.
Oh, okay.
If the premise is they're trying to get rid of these guys who have taken over their man cave, right? Oh, unless you're saying, are they using women to do that somehow?
Or just like those were the dudes that they were, you know, like they're turning it into a woman cave, so they have to get it back, I guess. But let's say if it was, you know, like, I guess, so you're looking for ideas about like fun scenes when they're trying to recapture this.
Right. So cave, I'll just start you off with one. So let's say they try to smoke them out with stink bombs, and they end up and usually when you're going to do a comedy, you're going to want to have each of these things kind of back. We don't have to think of how they'll backfire or whatever, but in this case, we'll start with like, you know, they smoke them out with stink bombs. They're trying to come up with like almost cartoony methods to get the other guys to leave so they can reclaim it. Any other ideas there?
And so just so I understand, so it's like, whose property is it? It's like someone bought the house, basically, or is it like...
let's say it's going to... Maybe if we do like a college setting, then they're all roommates.
Okay.
And maybe there's like a lot of people that are kind of coming in and out of the house.
Like a room that nobody uses in the dorms or something.
Yeah.
They turned it into their man cave.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the right idea.
Okay.
I like the idea... Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
You're okay. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I like the idea of it being adult men, you know, who, like I wrote my premise, you know, a dad, 4 kids, wife, big mortgage, and he takes on a side hustle to, you know, to build the ultimate man cave. But I mean, you don't have to use my idea, but I like the idea about being adult men, you know, maybe in their 30s and 40s, and you know, they think back to their days in college or high school, and they were able to party like they wanted. And yeah, maybe they all come together to build the ultimate man cave because no one guy can afford it himself. And yeah, I like the idea that, you know, they all start trying to take over, and yeah, bros bring in hoes, and you know, and that goes against the bro code. And of course, their wives are not gonna like that. And but you know, I like the idea of it being chaotic, and the, you know, the wives are getting pissed off about what's going on in the man cave. And but I just wanted to add that I like the idea of them being older instead of college age, because you know, man caves are really it's older men that you typically want a man cave.
Yeah,
you know?
you're right. I agree that I think this does work better with older men. We're just I think that we're looking for a solution to the problem of if it's somebody's property, it's easy to kick them off. So let's maybe say if we're doing adults, Nacho, then maybe they actually find a cave. Like it should be someplace that they all have equal claim to, right?
It's a literal cave.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But you know, okay, as someone who loves caves, I will tell you, you're going to have a real problem with electricity, water, etc.
They try solar panels. They try everything.
Right,
but you know, then you can bring the money conflict back
There's
in.
plenty of water in some caves.
That's
I gotta
true,
tell you.
but is it potable? Can you drink it? Because sometimes it isn't clear. Sometimes it has really bad bacteria. that the bacteria are fine, but you couldn't drink it.
You're right. You're right.
I would say that maybe a cave that was an abandoned bomb shelter, because
Yeah.
there's lots of those, and you can buy them. In fact, true story, I actually looked at buying one of those in Oklahoma near my best friend, because my boyfriend and I are thinking of retiring in Oklahoma because the prices are really right. And I said, look, there's this bomb shelter that is enormous. We could buy this for 50K and refurbish it for another 50K. And okay, so who cares that it's a bomb shelter? It will have everything, and it's got like 5 acres of land. So maybe a premise like that. Maybe they pull in their money to have to buy a bomb shelter, and it's got everything, but now the problem with, well, okay, maybe they'll own it together, but who really, who's in charge? There's got to be some conflict with the bros.
Monica had a great idea about maybe the cave like transports them back to like caveman days or something. Somehow, like maybe there's a.
That is funny, but we're drifting too far. We're getting too distracted. We need to just focus on the ideas we have. Right. So we'll go with I like the bomb shelter. That's a good idea. And also, I think if they don't buy it, they just find it and then they refurbish it themselves. Then everyone sort of has kind of equal claim to this thing. So when the rival clan of dudes moves in, then they're going to have to find creative ways to get them out. They can't just call the cops.
So do we actually make the bomb shelter more of a Chekhov's gun, or Chekhov's bomb in this case, where it turns out at some point people actually need to use the bomb shelter for its intended purposes?
Maybe. That could be a
fun
finale.
And that means that hoes have to be alongside bros, and that's no-goes.
Okay.
That could be a funny conflict.
Sure. So let's focus, though, on the section that we're working on, which is we're thinking of sequences from the middle of the story. Go ahead.
So you're looking for kind of like sort of cartoonish, like,
broad comedy.
Siege battle.
Yeah, so what are some tactics they might use to try to get the bad dudes out?
Like maybe trick them with some kind of, like, I don't know, something they would really want to, like some famous actress outside, or that they know these people like, or something that or somehow hire
them to Disneyland
actress to.
How about that someone convinces them, one of the bros convinces them that Tracy Lords is going to actually come and do her thing for them.
Who's Tracy Lords?
You know who Tracy Lords is?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, she was like the #1 porn star. And and now she's gone into real acting. And so although I will say this, people will think, will say, well, they're not really actresses. I will say this: if you had to have sex with somebody and act like you like it for like 12 times in a row, I think you would be an actress. Anyway, but anyway, so they could say, like, they're hiring like a porn actress, to come and do her thing for them, and then it turns out not really to be the truth, but that's how they get the invading bros out.
Sure. Okay, good. Thank you for the suggestions. If we could just stick with one person doing this at a time, just for now, so we'll just stick with Nacho. I just want to get like 3 things down on the board before we do any more. We're just running a little low on time. Thank you though for your ideas, everybody. This has been a great activity. Let's just finish filling this out. So, Nacho, I liked your idea of get a celebrity of some kind. I think you would have to find out which celebrity these particular guys would be really into. But then maybe you could hire an like they try to hire the actual celebrity, but they only end up getting an impersonator. And then you could have a whole sequence. You could have a lot of fun with an impersonator, like a not that convincing impersonator.
Exactly.
Impersonator of their favorite celebrity. I unless we get more specific on the dudes, I don't know who that would be, but I'm sure we'd figure something out. Let's think of one more sequence.
I'm just thinking some kind of like medieval siege battle type thing, but with sort of childish weapons that they might use, or just like they're trying to it's almost like the people inside are, they're not, I mean, I don't know, how long is this going on? Like, is this like one day, or is this like,
I think this is weeks. I think this is weeks to months, yeah.
And they're just staying inside and they're not coming out, right? So maybe they stocked it up with all their coolest favorite foods.
For sure,
These guys are eating up all their stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And so maybe they're trying to like dig their way in, or they're trying, and the inside, because they built this thing to defend against like the end of the world or something. Yeah. So they have all these defenses. So they have to like fight against their own defenses. There's
that's great.
A trap that makes like whatever, like shoots giant durian fruit bombs or something, or some kind of crazy, things like that only those people would have, created, I guess.
That's a good point. And you also raised this question of, do they just stay in there the entire time? Which I think they'd have to leave sometimes. Maybe eventually they end up quitting their jobs, and that would be a nice midpoint if they're like, we're going to live in here full time now. But for a while, they're going to be coming and going. I think the problem is just at least one of them is in at all times and will only let their friends in. So what about when they leave, though? Wouldn't that be a natural sequence where we tail one of them and follow them home? That could be a fun tailing sequence. Go ahead.
I don't know if this is too much of a departure, but what if the people they're trying to get out are their own wives who took over the cave,
we could do that. That's a pretty different premise, because you're not going to be trying to smoke out your wives with stink bombs and do these things.
They might, depending on.
It's true, you might, but the tactics you use would be very different.
Yeah,
I mean, I almost feel if it's your wives, then things are at an absolute rock bottom in all of our main characters' relationships, probably. And so it just becomes a movie about fixing the relationships, where I think that it could work, but it's just a very different story.
Right.
So let's just stick with this for now. I think that we have some of these, because we only have 5 minutes, or like 8 minutes left in the class. I just wanted to give a sense of how we, from just the core premise, we'll need to zero in a little bit more to find like, okay, what would those sequences in the middle be? Because until we had the idea that, okay, we have the guys that have invaded the man cave, we didn't really have a conflict for the story. So that's why I try to pick that early on and just really commit to the conflict that seems most logical. It's like a series of deductions, right? We're trying to find the conflict that seems most logical for the world that we're in, and for just those basic, just for that really, really, really simple, basic, condensed version of the premise. So, this actually sounds kind of funny. If somebody wants to write Man Cave, please do. It is open to the public, much like this bunker was open to the public. Michelle says, what about their wives, husbands, significant others, and kids? I think that our main crew was intending to split their time between the man cave and use it as sort of a retreat from their families, like for dudes to hang out with at once a week or something. But then once the other dudes take it over full time, then they feel obligated to reclaiming their territory. Okay, so hopefully that has cleared up maybe some of your guys' questions and how we begin to put together a feature premise. And usually it does come from this just really simple expression of it. A nice title does definitely help. You don't have to have a great title off the bat, but it clarifies what the hook of the story is a lot of the time. So from just Man Cave, we could expand that out into finding that central conflict, and from there, we should be able to come up with 3 to 5 sequences for the very middle of the story that all pertain to the core premise as we've expressed it. So when you're coming up with trying to write high concept feature ideas, you need to populate and fill out the center of that outline. So everything in that fun and games or premise scenes sequence, you need to put the sort of fun stuff that came first to your head when you thought of that idea. Like if we're going to do a movie about a vampire who becomes a firefighter, we want to see in the premise scenes where his firefighting is complicated by his vampirism, and his vampirism is complicated by his firefighting. So in the Street Performer, we had different urban environments where a street performer would get to use his acrobatic skills in interesting and fun ways to beat up the bad guys in a Jackie Chan style action movie. And then for Man Cave, we decided our idea was, okay, we're going to use essentially like pranks and various underhanded tactics to oust this invading group from the Man Cave, which is their place of safety and the place where they can unashamedly be themselves. So I'm going to open the floor to questions based on outlining features. Any questions you guys have on today that pertain to outlining?
I'm wondering about okay, so you said by the second I think the second page that you have to have your not your premise, but the I forget what you call it.
Inciting incident?
No, the inciting incident is first, right? But
In
then
a
by the
logline?
second no, but I'm talking about the pages that in the second page, by the second page you have to have like your stakes or something like that.
There's not really a rule on what you need to have by the second page that I'm aware of.
Okay, I was thinking that you said that by the second page you need to have like your stakes, you know. Um
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to here. I mean, you can establish the stakes at any point in the story. The earlier, the better.
okay.
So page 2 sounds like a fine place to learn what the stakes are, but we might also find out on page 1 or page 5 or page 10, or that might be... Like, we're learning what the stakes are throughout the intro sequence, which is, like, the first couple scenes.
Well, I agree that the stakes you know, if they're early, they hook you in,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking back to my concept about it's kind of building, and if on the second page I could show like the hurricane, you know, coming, and I want the people to be kind of unaware because that's actually what happened in real life. They thought, well, look, this is a coastal community. We get storms all the time. You know, we got a little flooding. So what? You know, and then it turns out to be literally everyone's worst nightmare. And lots of people die, you know, but of course
Mm-hmm.
I can't have my main characters die. I realize that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, or be Game of Thrones.
Right.
but anyway, and this isn't meant to be a series. This is just like a one movie, you know.
Sure. Wait,
So
so was there a question? Sorry, can you
well,
restate what the question was?
I'm just wondering, do I need to have my conflict or my stakes on the second page, or can I wait a few pages for that?
So, the stakes are like a combination of things. The stakes are the like it's a combination of what will happen if the main character doesn't succeed at their goal. It's sort of what we're establishing what the main character stands to lose. So like if throughout the first 10 minutes of the movie, we might just be meeting the characters and seeing these different families together and learning who they are and seeing that they love each other and that they are struggling in various ways. Like that's one way of establishing stakes. It's not like it's something you just do on a single page. Usually it's something you do throughout the intro of the movie. So we're coming to learn the what the characters stand to lose and what they're up against in the first act, and then the second act is where they really confront the central threat of the movie. So that there's going to be all kinds of conflict throughout. Like almost every scene will have its own conflict. But in terms of the premise of your movie, which is this big storm, that's probably going to start around page 10 to 15 as your catalyst, and then throughout that sequence up until our second act break, then it's going to be, you know, building and building. Nobody knows how bad it's going to get, and then when we break into act 2, that's when things really get real, you know. So I think that's how I would kind of approach it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure. Hope that's helpful. Let me open the floor to any other questions you guys have on outlining features that we talked about today. Or any questions on Script Camp.
Once you're done outlining, sorry.
I think we had a few folks speaking at once. Go ahead, somebody. Go ahead.
When you're done outlining, is that where you start writing your screenplay in full?
No. So once this here is what we're going, if we're just writing out the essentials of these different moments, it's not a comprehensive list of every scene. This is what we call the story beats outline. So we want to have at least a couple bullet points down, or at least one bullet point down, I guess I should say, for all the major structural beats. From here, we expand this into what we call scene cards. Scene cards is a full paragraph for every single scene that includes the pages that it denotes the pages that it will take place on in the story. So we're kind of budgeting out like how many pages we're going to spend on each moment. And to that end, like we need to do quite a bit, or I guess in service of that, we need to do quite a bit more work before we would start writing in the actual screenwriting software. We call that going to pages. When you go to pages, that means you have gone from pre-writing into actually, final draft or whatever it is you have, and started writing and blocking and staging and writing dialogue for scenes. So there's quite a lot of time would occur after you finish just the basic outline to a full set of scene cards. Then I usually am going to fully revise that set of scene cards several times. So after the second or third revision of scene cards is when I usually start going to pages. Good question, though. Scene cards, how do we write those? Well, basically, you take all the points that we have, like all these little ideas for scenes, and we expand them, writing out, 3 to 5 sentences for each scene that more carefully lays out main character of this scene. What are they up against? How do they overcome it? Or change their tactics in order to overcome it? Do they succeed or fail? Do they get closer to or further from their ultimate goal? And many other just sort of like of the little checklists and the things that we have that can just ensure that our scenes are really working. We can just expand what we have here in the story beats into those full paragraphs for every scene. It's kind of the basics of it. But again, we have a few recordings of structure classes we've done before that go into much more detail on that. But basically, you just take the story beats and expand it, blow up every bullet point into a full paragraph. Other questions? Carmen asked, can we do this more often? This was a fun class. Yeah, we'll have more events kind of like this all throughout the next couple weeks and then into early January. Let's look at what we have coming up, and then we'll wrap up for today, because it sounds like we don't have any more questions at the moment. So, upcoming events and classes. Here it is. Here's the list that I just mentioned of upcoming stuff. We'll have a class kind of like this for TV shows on December 14th. That's this Wednesday at 6 o'clock. We have the first week of Pilot Boot Camp on Friday. We have a first page class Sunday the 18th. And we have a Christmas movie pitch fest on the 21st, which we'll have more info about that soon. And then on the 28th at 6 o'clock, we have a class on pitching and sort of selling the movie idea. And then another one-off TV writing class on the 30th at 6 o'clock. You can see them all over here.
I have a question, actually. What time zones are we talking? It's Pacific Standard Time, or...?
That's right. Yeah, these are all Los Angeles Pacific Standard Time.
Okay. You mentioned your German class. When is that?
Not announced yet, but it'll be in the new year. It'll probably be late January.
Okay, das ist gut.
Yes, thanks for the
das war
question
richtig gute Aussprache.
Mich persönlich?
Ah nein, von ihr. Das war richtig cool. Also die Aussprache war gar nicht immer schlecht. Also German.
Ja, natürlich. Du wohnst in Deutschland?
Ich komme aus Deutschland.
Oh, okay. Not there anymore. Cool. Yeah, if you want to come by, when I announced that, I would love to actually have any native speakers, because I'm not a native speaker. I've just studied for many years. But it'd be great to have native speakers there too. I'm
already on the Lingo Camp.
Perfect.
If you want any assistance or something like that with German. Do know one thing. It is that I still don't understand the difference between Akkusativ, Dativ, and Genitiv. And my mother is sitting on the couch next to me, probably currently really embarrassed about that. But I don't know it.
Yeah, that's the thing when you're a native speaker, you don't really learn the grammar the same way.
Yeah, you don't. And my school didn't help that.
Right, great. Okay. Well, yeah, it would be great to have you for that, so glad you're on Lingo Camp. And anyone else who's interested in language learning using the same sort of model of instruction, definitely join Lingo Camp, because we want to... I think this is a great platform for teaching languages.
Wait, so did you study screenwriting, or like did you study linguistics or something, or?
I was a film studies major.
Does that include linguistics?
No, but I'm very interested in linguistics and just wanted to learn a language on my own.
You picked German?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you hate? I'm sorry, but do you hate yourself? Why would you pick pyramid?
It seemed easier. I don't know. It seemed doable. I'm not exactly sure why I chose that specifically. It just seemed it was like a little bit off the beaten path. Like it wasn't offered by the school, so I liked how it was a little different, and just a lot of close comparisons to English, which made it seem less intimidating. So if we have no more questions, I think we'll call the class for today, and we will see you all in your next Script Camp event. We hope to see you for some of these promotional classes. And if you're interested in taking longer courses like write a whole movie in 8 weeks or write a whole pilot in 6 weeks, you should sign up for membership, which you can do at scriptcamp.net/membership. You can sign up for your 2-week free trial, which gives you access to absolutely everything we do on all of our servers here. So you're free to stay for just the promotional stuff if you want, but we'd love to see you for some of our longer courses and more in-depth classes with pro industry guests and with plenty of motivation to help you finish that script, whether you're experienced or you are just starting out. So we have a poll in the chat. If you've not already voted, you can click that number 1 to indicate that you're interested in joining, and we can set you up with the permissions that boot campers have so you can see our chat channels and things like that. And then I think that's all that we have for today. We'll see you guys at your next event, and we hope you have a great rest of your weekend.